Hi, I'm Susanna and this is my November reading wrap-up. I finished two novels in November, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. These books form a young adult fantasy duology. I think I need to preface this with a little background first. I read Bardugo's Shadow and Bone trilogy last year and I felt that the first two books had a huge potential which didn't quite realize. I had hoped that the third book, Ruin and Rising, would form an amazing finale to the series, but that didn't happen. I did not like the way the trilogy ended. After that, several people told me that Six of Crows is a better series and told me how much they loved it, so I was expecting it to be an instant 5-star read. And as was probably bound to happen after all that hype, this series couldn't possibly live up to my expectations. That pretty much always happens to me with highly hyped books. Now, that doesn't mean that I hated the duology. I gave both books 4 stars. So the rest of this review is me trying to figure out why they weren't 5 stars for me. Let's start with Six of Crows. Criminal mastermind Kat Sprecher has been offered a deal of a lifetime. Break into an unbreakable fortress of the Ice Court and retrieve a hostage and he will become a millionaire. But he can't pull it off by himself. Together with a team of 5 other outcasts, he sets out to carry an impossible heist. So why wasn't this book 5 stars for me? The first problem, admittedly, is me. Basically the only thing I knew about Six of Crows before reading it was that it was a heist. Now that sounds super exciting, but for some reason my mind didn't connect the dots and realize that heists are committed by criminals, and criminals, if not morally black, are at least morally grey, and I have a hard time connecting with morally grey characters. I started reading this book and in the first chapter there were 2 characters I really liked. Unfortunately, they were both dead before page 60. And then I was stuck with a bunch of morally grey criminals. It took me a long time to warm to the 6 main characters. The second problem was the pacing. The book started very slowly with introductions of the 6 main characters peppered with hints about their tragic backstories. Unfortunately, as I didn't care about the characters, I also wasn't interested in learning their backstories. I just wanted the heist. Now, after the first 100 pages, the characters finally started planning the heist. The pacing picked up a little and there was more action and thus the story became a lot more interesting. But at the same time, the hints about the backstories morphed into long flashbacks, revealing said backstories. Every time something interesting happened, the action came to a standstill with yet another flashback. And unfortunately, I still didn't care. I would have enjoyed this book a lot more if it had been 200 pages shorter with little to no backstory. Obviously, in order to make the story interesting, their plan of how to retrieve the hostage needed to fail, but at no point was it clear what their plan actually was. Because the reader was kept in the dark, I never knew whether something that happened was part of the plan that I should celebrate or a failure I should grieve. A lot of the story hinged on misdirections to the point that the technique became predictable. In the end, I could guess what was happening and that killed some of the excitement. In addition, there were a lot of little plot holes in their plan. It also didn't feel like these characters were 17. It would have made more sense if they had been at least in their early 20s. Yes, they were emotionally immature at points, but a lot of people are in their 20s, especially if they've had a traumatic past. The world building is fascinating and I would have loved to love this book. But in the end, like I said, I ended up giving this 4 stars. And then the second book, Crooked Kingdom. Kat Sprecher and his team have just pulled off a daring heist, but instead of enjoying their reward, they have been double-crossed by the merchant who recruited them. Determined to get their revenge and their money, while the whole city is after them, the group plans another series of elaborate schemes to destroy their enemies, and maybe to save a few Krisha as well. I think my disappointment with Six of Crows lowered my expectations enough so that I could be pleasantly surprised with Crooked Kingdom, because I enjoyed this book a lot more. Like I said, one of my major problems with Six of Crows was how much the narrative focused on the characters' backstories. Crooked Kingdom had its fair share of flashbacks as well, but they didn't feel as intrusive. It also helped that the characters this book focused on were the ones that I liked the most, namely Wyland and Ines. A major bonus of this book was that there was so little Cass and his backstory in it. However, the heist plot of Six of Crows was much more interesting than the revenge plot of Crooked Kingdom. The group's plans meandered from one scheme to another as their plans went awry time and again. Like Six of Crows, this book could have easily been 200 pages shorter with a snappier pace. But I did enjoy the final resolution of how the group got their revenge. So in short, I like the characters more in this installment. I also like the fact that there was less focus on backstories. But as the plot wasn't as exciting as in Six of Crows, I'm also giving this book 4 stars. I finished 3 non-fiction books in November. Greek fiction, the Greek novel in context, and a commentary of Achilles Statius's Leucippe and Cleitophon. These are both about ancient Greek novels. I also finished my old high school history book. In November, I also started Lauren Crofts' The Vaster Wilds, which I'm planning to finish in December. And there are 2 other novels I want to finish before Christmas. Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler and I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hoffman. Hopefully over the holidays I have time to read 2 more novels, but I don't know what I'll be reading yet. There are also 3 non-fiction books I want to finish before Christmas. 2 of them are about ancient Greek novels. Graham Anderson's Ancient Fiction, the novel in the Greco-Roman world, and Vision and Narrative in Achilles Statius's Leucippe and Cleitophon by Helen Morales. And the final book I want to finish before Christmas is my old high school biology textbook. Those were the books I read in November and my goals for December. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book in November was, and I'll see you in my next video.